You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and technology. I'm your host, Dimitri Vitsa. I am the CEO and founder of Rock, Paper, Scissors, a music and tech PR firm. And today I'm at NAMM, the National Association of Music Merchandisers in Anaheim, California. And we're doing some interviews from the floor here. And I have with me today a very special guest, Rob D'Amico from Avid. He's the Director of Product Marketing of Audio Solutions. How you doing, Rob?
Very good. How are you today?
I'm doing great. You holding up okay in the NAMM environment?
Yep. Day one is done. It's been a really exciting start of the show, and we're ready for day 2, 3, and 4.
I hope you've got good shoes.
Yes, brand new shoes, and I don't know if that was the greatest idea coming in, but yep, new shoes ready to break it in.
That's great. Well, let's start off with giving our listeners an overview of Avid's products and where the company fits into the music ecosystem. We've got a diverse audience of listeners in the music industry, and some of them probably use your Pro Tools and other things all the time, and some of them might be totally new to it. But let's give them a quick overview.
Sure. Avid Technology delivers products and solutions across all media entertainment industry for creating media and content. From news to video editing and film to music creation and all sorts of content that gets created. Avid usually has a product that is associated with that content. So, my focus here at Avid is on the audio solutions, as you mentioned. And man, it is such a great year that we're going to have with a lot of new audio products and solutions that really resonates with customers' needs and challenges that they've had in the industry in creating sound for picture or music content.
Yeah, so talk just a tiny bit more about your role in the company as Director of Product Marketing.
Sure. So my role here is to really make sure that we get our product messaging and positioning out in how we're trying to describe our product solutions to our customers, right? So my job is to, with the small team, to go and talk to a lot of customers, talk to a lot of users in the industry to understand what kind of challenges they have when dealing with audio creation, whether for sound for picture, podcasting even, or music production. And so we understand and learn from these conversations their challenges, their needs, what their goals are, and what they're trying to accomplish. And we bring that back to the product management team. We align on some of the ideas that we can solve for with these with what challenges are being communicated to us about. And then we turn it into a product. So the product management team works with the development team to develop a product, whether it's software or even hardware, or even a cloud solution for that matter. And then my job is then to make sure that we articulate it to the market what the problems we are trying to solve with these solutions and products, how we're positioning, how we want to message it, how we want to really try to simplify the communication of understanding what we're trying to do.
Gotcha, yeah. And I guess most people would know Pro Tools in the music industry.
Sure.
That would be probably the most popular product that you guys have.
Yes.
Are there other things that the music industry would be interfacing with or that you'd want people to know about, maybe newer things or plugins or anything else like that?
Sure, yeah. So Pro Tools is, been the standard in a lot of music production and audio post-production, sound for film, for 30 years, right? And so that DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, is basically the platform for where people start to record or edit and mix and then deliver, right? So it all starts with that being the source in the platform. But it's not just the Digital Audio Workstation, the software that helps creators create their content. It's also around the equipment that connects into the software, that integrates with the software. And one of the things that Avid really delivers to the market is integration of control surfaces, so mixing consoles that integrate with the software, interface boxes that integrate with the software. So it's a very much easier process for the creator to take away the technology. When you have that level of integration around how you create music, and the integration of the hardware and the software just seamlessly work, and it becomes an extension, and it's invisible to the creative process. That's where we really feel like we're uniquely advantaged when we're talking to our customers about how they want to create music. The other component is on the other end of the spectrum is once they finish and create their content, once they have a piece of music that they're happy with and they want to actually share with the world and get it heard, we have an actual new product that we just launched at in July, the summer NAMM actually, called Avid Play, and it's a music distribution service. So now once you create all your content, your music in Pro Tools, you now have an avenue to now distribute it to the Spotify's, Apple Music, Pandora, or Amazon Music, any of the top over 80 different outlets that we distribute to, that very, very affordable for independent artists. So when we talk to independent artists, one of the challenges are like, I want to be able to, reap the benefits, create a way for me to get heard, but keep 100% of the earnings that I'm owed because it's my music. So we created this service that we absolutely make sure that the artist gets 100% of the earnings that they deserve for getting heard, or getting those stream counts up, or getting those download purchases. So Avid Play is new, and it's hopefully going to attract new musicians and artists and producers to use this service so that they can actually have a way to distribute their music around the world and actually get heard and get their music maybe even licensed for programming at some point.
Yeah, as you know, Rob, we talk about these seismic shifts at Music Tectonics, and one of them is music creations in the hands of the masses. So I totally see where you're going, where people not only can make it, but then also get it out to the world. Makes a ton of sense. And, that brings us to kind of like a larger context of how are DAWs influencing the overall industry and fans' experience of music. I mean, there was a time when DAWs didn't really exist.
It's true. I grew up in that world, actually, and went to college to study the art of mixing, and that was on 24-track tape. Mm-hmm. That transition into Pro Tools, happened in the mid-'90s and well into where we are today to be that cornerstone now of creation, the DAW that you say. I mean, there are so many DAWs of choice that people use today for creation. What we do find that for the majority of those that create in other DAWs, they often find themselves when they want to do a final mix or mix in a professional studio sense, they transition their sequences or their projects into Pro Tools to do that final mix. Mm-hmm. DAWs for creation, the goal there, I would say, is to really keep the technology invisible, right? And give it a landscape that is kind of like a canvas for a painter, right? So that they can just easily get the ideas that they have in their head on paper, or in this case, in the digital domain, so that way they can just, as they get inspired with a new sound or a new beat or a new melody, they can easily capture it and then build off it. So the DAW is a tool in the artist's toolbox, right, in that sense. And that's kind of how we view it in making sure that we give every piece of that tool the strong capabilities it needs to be for that artist to deliver what they have in their mind and what they're trying to get that vision across.
Gotcha. So you guys are probably thinking about what kind of interface and experience for those musicians will get them in there quickly, making stuff, moving stuff around, getting the sounds they want. But to me, what the larger picture is saying is really, I mean, you talked about having 24 tracks on tape, imagining editing that much tape, literally, versus the experience of all that physical product and labor kind of no longer being necessary. Really opens up the door to more people creating and people creating more prolifically. And I think that's another thing we talk about at Music Tectonics is just how much music there is.
That's right.
And the fact that more types of people are able to have access to creating music.
Yeah, well, the DAW also, the transition from tape to a digital audio workstation, you move from a linear way of creating to a nonlinear way of creating. And that is super, super important to note, because people don't always think in a progression sense. They have ideas that come after the fact that they just want to insert in different areas at moment's notice, and then build off of that and then have it progress. And so the digital audio workstation is that that open medium that they can use to create in freeform mode versus, like you said, tape. It's tape. It's one thing after another, right? It's running past the playhead, and that's how you open up to much more creative ideas when you have an environment like a digital audio workstation. Same thing for video editing, actually, as well. That whole transition, Avid was part of that transition from film to nonlinear editing for video editing. It's the same type of concept, that you now have that random access points to just insert creativity and ideas and putting imagination to paper or digital.
So speaking of creativity, what are some of the latest developments or trends that you're seeing in how people are making music? I mean, obviously we've talked generally about how going digital in production has changed things, and you also mentioned all these hardware interface solutions that you guys are always working on to even make it easier or more tactile as well. What are some of the latest things that you've seen in terms of trends of new, like even this last year or so, that people are using to make new music?
Wow, yeah, it's a great question. It's a challenge to answer that in one, I mean, I could give you my perspective on it all.
That's what I want. I want your perspective, and also, and in specifics, it doesn't have to be everything, but just, here's one example that will blow your mind or just change how you think about music making.
Well, I think, with DAWs and the combination of using sound effects or any kind of sound to be part of a composition, that is definitely has definitely evolved with the creation of a DAW. In the digital domain, you have drum machines, you have loop libraries, you have different kind of sample libraries, and often you have artists that like to sample their own types of sounds and use that as a source. With today's music, what helps people engage and draw our attention to it is uniqueness, right? So someone is always listening for that unique sound again, and so the traditional sense of just recording a piece of an instrument, so to say, is sometimes what I would say is not as interesting when composing for different styles of music. You want to evolve a sound. You want to manipulate a sound and create like a certain texture to a beat or to a loop or a synth sound that draws someone's attention to saying, oh wow, that's a really cool evolving sound, or a build up into a transition of a chorus to a back to a verse, or a verse into a chorus. It's those types of things that that I find people are drawn to, and it's an evolution of building on EDM styles and other type of hip hop and styles like that. And traditional rock even has gone into using a lot of samples into their creation. But yeah, it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to always innovate in the creator's mind in how to create a sound that is just now manipulated into an instrument.
Yeah, it's interesting because, traditionally you just had an acoustic instrument that had a particular timbre, had a particular range and a dynamism. And once you have this ability to micromanage your sound, really get to that tonal level and the timbral level, you are inventing an instrument every time you make something.
That's right.
Which is pretty interesting, and it's very specific to digital music. I mean, there's some traditional or historic ways in which people did some of that, even with like wah-wah pedals, or or we've seen African xylophones where they put the membrane of a spider's egg on the resonator that gives it a buzz, or they put jangly stuff on thumb pianos, things like that, where all of a sudden you have this crazy buzz. They're basically manipulating the sound, but without digital. But that timbral aspect of it is very unique to the digital age, I think.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny talking to some artists, like they go above and beyond just to create some just crazy recordings and then take that into the digital domain and just manipulate and continue to manipulate with different effects. You can get down to your point to the sample level of a sound, right? The very the smallest fraction of a space of what makes up a sound file, and manipulate that,
Right.
and that can really change how you perceive like an emotion, and it's pretty awesome.
Have you seen, obviously you mentioned electronic music and hip hop, obviously in the digital world, those are heavily dependent on a lot of those digital sounds. But are you seeing any new genres or even micro genres that are emerging as a result of this technology?
Yeah, I would say, I was listening on the plane ride over here to the new Ed Sheeran CD, the compilation that he's an amazing artist that uses all the tools that he has at his fingertips, and he collaborates amazingly with different artists like Eminem, 50 Cent, all the way to Cardi B and Travis, and it's just every song on that album is a collaboration with a different artist, and it has a different flavor and a different, when you hear like just the rhythms and the beats and the background reverbs that he's using on the different songs, even like the space that he's putting the vocals in. When you really listen to how it resonates and decays, it has different types of trails to it that just create a different environment and different emotion to what he's trying to do, and he's very artistic when he does that stuff. It's really fun to listen to when you.
It's hard to talk about some of these sounds sometimes too, because you kind of have to hear them. They do something to your ear and to your head and
That's
to your spirit.
right.
But
It's an emotional thing. It's emotional traction, and yeah.
So switching gears here, there's a lot of new types of music making apps that are for mobile phones. What are your thoughts about, or mobile devices? What are your thoughts about mobile devices replacing desktops?
It's a great question. I think they're, as we were saying at the very beginning, the DAR being the centerpiece of the platform, mobile devices I do see as kind of like what an interface is today, as far as it's part of the tool in the toolbox, right? So what mobile gives you is that freedom to be anywhere in the world and have an idea and get it captured, right? So a lot of folks, artists, they travel, they're performers. We were talking about that, right? Not only are they recording artists and producers and engineers, they also are performers. So they travel and from city to city, from state and country to country. That doesn't stop them from creating and having ideas. So what mobile does is it gives them that platform to then capture anything at any given time and start the process sooner. Start it at that moment of the idea happening. And then a lot of artists today will capture it on their phone in different types of apps and then bring it into the DAW afterwards, because it's a sound file at that point, and then it builds from there. I think it's a fantastic way to work.
Do you guys see a moment when the primary platform will be mobile and that desktop may wither away?
It's a great question. I don't know if anytime real soon, to be honest with you. I think the desktop and the reliability, stability is so important to the professional end user, to make sure that they don't have downtime, that they stay in that creative mode and having all the tools that they want to interop with. That's a huge paradigm shift. I don't know. It's hard for me to predict the future, but I would say mobile will continue to be an accessory to the creative process. Whether it becomes the core platform, who knows? If it gets powerful enough, if everybody ends up going in that direction, but I don't see that happening in the next 5 years.
Okay, cool. Well, to continue the future predicting, I'm curious, where do you stand in the AI music generation conversation?
I love it.
Yeah?
I love it. Being a musician myself, or drummer. Some people don't refer to me as a musician, but I think AI is something that we all should be paying attention to. We should be using AI for assistive means. I think when some people talk about music creation or music production and audio production in general, and you use the term AI, people get worried that, oh, you're going to remove jobs from the industry and replace people with machines, and that's not at all what I'm thinking about. I'm talking about being assistive to the creative process, removing the mundane busy work that is part of creation today, like setting up a session potentially, or setting up you know a preset, or getting some like the starting point set up, like for you when you're mixing. As an example, I'll give you an example. When you're mixing a bunch of different sounds together, right? A bass drum along with the guitar bass, right? Those frequencies often conflict. Mm-hmm. Okay, so at the lower frequency area of the spectrum. Well, AI can be assistive in letting you know how to visually shape a certain sound to be able to stick out more, give you some ideas on, okay, where the EQ curve could be, and then you could take it to the next level to tweak. So I think AI has a place in the industry for sure, to be assistive rather than what people sometimes get paranoid with in taking on the complete creative process.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So another one that's coming, I would say, is 5G. How do you think 5G, cellular, wireless, will change music making and maybe collaboration? Because that might be the...
Sure. Collaboration's a good one. I'd love to dive into that in a second. But just to answer your other question, the 5G component, I think it's faster, right? So it's speed, in this case, is more assistive. It helps the collaboration process for sure. It helps getting, the idea of what we were talking about a moment ago, being mobile with an idea and getting it captured. Having a system where you have your mobile device connected to your main studio, so that way as you're capturing an idea, it automatically uploads in the background and ready for someone else to start working with it, right? So 5G just enables that pipeline to be more stable, faster, and more reliable, right?
Right.
That's how I see that. But collaboration is a really, really important one, because and this is something that Avid has focused on for many years now, and has a really good solution to it for collaborating on the creative process in Pro Tools. So we call it cloud collaboration. So you could invite anywhere in the world, anyone, to a Pro Tools project. You connect with them and send them an invitation to that project, and next time they sit down with their Pro Tools system, they'll see that project show up, and they can be contributors to that session. So you can, as say I was the owner of that session, or it was my project that I was inviting you to collaborate with, you'd get an invitation. I'd assign, say, a certain number of tracks for you to input, say, bass track into, and I'm working on the drum track. So when you're done, you hit the up button, and all of a sudden your track's in the background without you having to deal with managing and placing it into a Dropbox. Automatically puts it up into the cloud, and I get a notification in my project as I'm working that there's a track available for me to download. Hit the green button, bang, it shows up, and I get what you just worked on. And you could have been in another country. So it really focuses on, no matter where you are in the world, if you have an artist that you really want to work with on a project, we have a means to do that today, and it's super, super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, just as we were talking about how you manipulate the very most micro level of sounds with this digital platform, now you're also talking about basically time travel or space travel in a way, because all of a sudden this person that's on the other end of the world you'd never be able to collaborate with. Now you have the opportunity.
Yep.
And I'll be interested to see with 5G if you can do it in real time, or or any kind of broader band, whether it's through phones or through Ethernet. And
yeah, I think it's open to evolve for sure into that area. I wouldn't doubt it one bit if it turned into a real-time level collaboration at some point. I think there's definitely opportunity there.
Yeah. So what new things do you think we will see emerge in music making or listening in the next 5 or 10 years today? Are there other AIs or 5Gs that we didn't bring up, other contextual things that you think are going to shift the landscape? Or more generally, just what do you think is going to, what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years where we're going to say, didn't see that coming, or, we couldn't even wrap our head around it, since you're kind of at the center of this digital world?
It's curious. It's hard for me to say. I mean, I think we're just touching the surface with AI. There are some companies that are doing more things with it to utilize that assistive means. I see in the next 5 years that just really evolving into a more prominent part of people's workflows. Beyond that, as far as, it's hard for me to say for sure. I think what we do at Avid is we take a lot of priority in making sure that we understand the customer's needs, and we try to solve for those challenges and needs that they have with different technology. So I would say a lot can happen in those conversations that inspire technology companies like Avid to create and utilize an AI technology or something else like that to develop to solve for that problem that people have. Again, the goal is to make sure that people are able to be as creative as possible without the tools and the technology getting in the way.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So we're at NAMM. We haven't really talked about NAMM much yet, so we'll save that for now. What is Avid announcing here at NAMM this year? Is there anything that's new that people should know you're up to?
Yeah. As I was saying, it's a really exciting time to be at Avid for audio. We have finished out 2019 with an amazing launch and shipment of new control surfaces. We have our Avid S4, which is a large mid-size console for studios to do mixing and production. And then we, in December, shipped our Avid S1 console, which is 8 faders, perfect size for a project studio. It could be expanded up to 4 of these daisy chained together by a magnetic strip. Really, really powerful. So we have those on debut at the show for the first time. We have a new version of Pro Tools 2020 that we're launched at the show yesterday that's on display, showcasing what we call folder tracks. Again, getting the clutter, getting a project that is very complex, being able to create folders for your tracks to better organize your session and keep that creative flow going without the complexity of how many tracks you have going and staring at you in the face. We have a new piece of hardware interface to be able to capture, it's called the Pro Tools Matrix Studio, to be able to capture recordings and be able to monitor more efficiently your audio content up to Dolby Atmos. And we didn't actually talk about Dolby Atmos, but that could be another topic after I finish other things that we're not announcing, because that's a new emerging platform format that is now making its way into music, very much so. And then we were also launching at the show, we have an accelerated card that for processing audio, that we now have that ability to connect it to a laptop through Thunderbolt 3, as well as an iMac and Mac Mini. So you can have the power of our DSP cards on a simple laptop to get that same guaranteed performance and the lowest latency recording you need when tracking a band or recording a vocal.
Nice. Well, that's a lot of cool stuff, and it combines the software and the hardware side. But let's talk about Atmos, and people have probably at least heard the name bantied about. Why don't you start by just telling us what it is and then why you're excited about it?
Yeah, so Dolby is a great partner at Avid. We talk and been working together very closely over the past 5+ years. So Dolby Atmos is a new format, or somewhat new format, over the past 5 years. It's an immersive format. So think about when you're listening to music, or I should say, what people can relate to it mostly right now is when they go to the movie theater and they hear all sounds around them. It's a vertical sound space as well as a horizontal sound space all around you. So think of it as a sphere of sound that you can pinpoint a sound source at any given area of that sphere. So Dolby Atmos being that format, um, and now the trend is very much taking off in applying that to a music mix, that you can create a mixing environment where you can place instruments or sounds anywhere in your head, whether you're listening to it on headphones or you have a listening environment that supports Dolby Atmos. You can now place sound sources at any given point. Give that separation. For music, it's not about flying things around like you do in a theater for a movie. It's about separation of sound sources so that they have their space in area that contributes to the emotion of the song that you're listening to. Really a powerful way to experience music. And what Avid provides is the creation process of that music. We provide the tools to pan or place or create the sounds at those locations and create that final delivery format to experience it in Dolby Atmos.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up because I think there's so much happening with aural technology and how the experience of listening is with 3D sound and all these things. That's definitely, I think, one of those things that we're gonna get used to and be like, what we were listening out of tin cans before.
That's right. That's right. I believe the one of the Alexa speakers actually you can purchase today on the market, and you can experience an immersive mix that are already being streamed from some of the different outlets. An actual Dolby mix, immersive music experience.
Be clear, that's one speaker. It's not behind you. It's not around you. It's just the one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's very cool. So we covered what you're announcing here. What do you get out of being at NAMM? For people, there's some people in our audience who maybe never have. Well, obviously, I don't know if there's sound bleed, but we're kind of in a booth. But NAMM is loud. We know that.
Oh yeah, NAMM is very loud. It's great. No, all kidding aside, NAMM. Why it's so important for me is it's a way in one location to meet with so many users and customers and people in the industry to just share ideas and share what experiences they've been having over the last year. And some of the best conversations happen when you get in front of someone in a place like NAMM and just start talking about, what their process is, or listening to how someone just finished up a project and they ran into a certain situation that now, sparks an idea of what we could potentially do to work on to solve for it. At NAMM, we also have a main stage at our booth that we have invited a bunch of our artists come and talk about how they use our products to create music or sound for picture. And Saturday at 1:00 at the booth, we have a special guest coming, Quincy Jones.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's going to be coming and talk to us for an hour about his life in music.
Yeah. So that's great. Well, I really appreciate you, Rob, coming out and taking some time from your very busy day to have this conversation. Really interesting stuff. Thanks for going there with us on the 10,000-foot view stuff.
My pleasure.
It's probably not something you're talking about every day here. Rob D'Amico, Director of Product Marketing of Audio Solutions at Avid. I'm sure you're on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Is there any other shout-outs, any places people should go to find out more about Avid, the website?
Yeah, avid.com. Come check it out. Learn about all our customers and some of the great content that they're producing, as well as the products and solutions that we provide to enable them to create that great content. So avid.com, look forward to seeing many of you in the near future at a show or just drop me a note.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Thank you very much, Dimitri.
And thank you for joining Music Tectonics. We've got more interviews coming up, so if you could hit subscribe to your favorite podcasting app, we'll be doing interviews with Moog, with Reason, with Autotune on Taurus Tech. We've got so much coming up, so make sure to stay tuned, and thanks for listening.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.